how do you balance, running a digital agency to working with people who set out to do business but they don't want to make money?
Okay. I mean, probably worth saying as well that like lots of charities and social enterprises are very, very good at making money. So,
oh, nice.
There's loads of social enterprises, particularly Scotland's got a really thriving social enterprise economy. Businesses that are not set out necessarily to be focused on profit, but that profit allows them to deliver more good in their communities. So I think for me that's probably an important part of the narrative. Your question, how do I balance the two things? I guess like for our work, we've always had kind of two quite distinct strands to our work. So on the agency side, we do things like website design development, we do digital transformation and consultancy work, a lot of classic things like you would see from any digital agency. And then on the programme side, we do things like our training programme where we've trained 15,000 people since 2020 working in the charity sector on a range of digital data and design skills. We run a programme called Digital Trustees where we try and get people from the tech sector onto charity boards. That's been a hugely successful programme. And for me, again, it's like that narrative about people giving back in the tech sector can sometimes, people have good intentions around that. What we're trying to do is change the conversations in the tech sector where actually you being involved in charities will benefit your career, it will benefit you as a startup. So if you're trying to run a startup and you end up on a charity board, suddenly you know how accounts work, suddenly you tapped into a complete new network, suddenly you know how proper leadership works, you know how accountability and decision making works. So for those people on the kind of early startup journey, being a charity trustee can be a hugely impactful thing that people do. So I guess going back to your original question, like how do we balance those things, is like we've always had the kind of paid work side of the business, whether we build a website or provide consultancy. But on the programme side, almost all of that work is free at the point of delivery for charities, and we'll partner with funder bodies like the Lottery or Robertson Trust to support those people who work in the charity sector to get the right skills and confidence they need around digital data and design.
Digital data and design, that's the part where you give back to the society. And the agency part of things is where you don't do that too, for businesses to make money.
Yeah, so worth saying, so on the agency side, we only work with third sector organisations. So we only work with charities, social enterprises, community groups. All of this only works because I have a very good team of people that are behind me. So like, good developers, designers, account managers, people leading on programmes. Like all of this happens because of all of those people. I happen to be the person that turns up in podcasts, but I don't do all the hard work.
That's nice. That's pretty neat. So there is something that's really that I want to understand. What kind of person or what kind of people decide that they are going to be running social enterprise? What kind of people do you see run these kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive cross-section of society. Like, so it might be someone who's had personal experience of something, like maybe they lost a loved one, a health condition, and they didn't get the right support they needed at the right time, and they set up a charity specifically for that health condition to support other people. There's a lot of kind of legacy charities set up, which can be really impactful. Some charities might be into the tens of millions of pounds turnover because they've been existing for a while. They provide big social care contracts that keep society running. In Scotland, there's loads of thriving social enterprises like CEIS, I think, might still be the biggest social enterprise in Europe, based in Glasgow. Really well known ones, things like Bike for Good, Bike for Refugees, like really grassroots organisations, but that serve a really clear purpose. In terms of the kind of people, like we've worked with like a huge range of people who have come from the business sector, who want to do something more interesting with their lives and set up a social enterprise. People who are just trying to do the right thing in their community and have a passion about something. And I think that's probably where our work's quite different, is like we work with quite big charities on things like website design, development work, and where those kind of budgets allow for that, but also we work with quite small community groups and deliver kind of one-to-one training with them and try and support them. And that's the bit that I would never change about the work that I do, is like being able to see that kind of full spectrum of third sector and the impact that those organisations have. But I mean, it's people doing a lot of work, often for free, and been very passionate about the work that they deliver, and often been quite undervalued in that work, whether that's through the pay or whether it's the kind of accolades they get for the impact that they have in their communities.
And why do you think people are, underpaid, undervalued for the immense work that they do? Sometimes the kind of work they do are the work nobody wants to do, or nobody's paying attention to.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Why do you think there is disparity in the reward?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done loads of work with social care charities over the years, lots of stuff around like online campaigns. How do we get a broader cross-section of society to work in a frontline social care job? The real answer is frontline social care jobs pay largely quite badly, and it's one of the hardest jobs anyone can do. And that is not the responsibility of charities, that's the responsibility of like what is important to us in society, how much are governments paying or local authorities paying in contracts to those organisations to deliver that really vital, really difficult work. So for me, that's the big thing, is like a reassessment of what is important. I know we're getting in a big like existential political debate here, but if as a society we value that work so little, that we pay so little for it to be delivered to some of the most vulnerable people in our communities, then how do we attract the right people to do those kind of jobs? So yeah, I don't know if that answered your actual question there, or if I just went off on a rant about people in social care not getting paid enough.
It seems to me, as an outsider in this sector, that the people who do these important jobs are underpaid from what you've said, and they are undervalued, they are under-recognized. Why do you think it's so?
Yeah, so apart from the rant I just went on about social care there and people being underpaid, I guess there's the simple fact that most charities rely on public donations, a small amount of government funding, and a lot of volunteers who are propping that up, and actually paying salaries that are equivalent to the private sector is very, very difficult. And I think this is probably for me the biggest challenge around digital data and design, and one of the big things that drives our work is you could be a service designer in one of the banks out there in Glasgow, and you could get paid the same salary as probably the average charity chief executive in Scotland. Now, you've got an important job as a service designer, but you probably don't manage a team. You probably are not responsible for the safety of people's lives, and your impact is probably nowhere near the same. And that's not being disparaging to it. I'm just plucking a service designer. That could be a web developer or a data analyst or a million other jobs in tech that pay probably at the level of a chief exec in a charity. And so that's been one of the drivers for our work, is how do you support third sector organisations to get more confident with digital data and design, so that the sector can reflect the skills that are needed in 2025 without necessarily having to be able to afford those people in those jobs, because the reality is for lots of charities they'll never be able to afford those people. So I guess going back to my point earlier is like, as a society, what do we actually value, and what's the most important thing, and where does that money flow, and do we value the work that charities do? And the money says we don't as much as we should. And I wish people in the charity sector were paid more than they were at the moment. If you have a person listening to this podcast who can make a considerable donation to lots of charities and bolster wages, that would be good.
Okay, so
if
you are listening to this podcast and you are in a position to be able to donate to whatever charity, it will go a long way.